So welcome to this talk on mindfulness for stress management. And my name is Angie Chu. I am the founder as well as the CEO and mindfulness principal at Brahm Centre. I teach many courses, retreats, workshops for the public as well as in many organizations, including schools and public service agencies and corporates, and also healthcare institutions. And I also teach at the National University of Singapore, a course called The Undefeated Mind. So mindfulness can certainly increase our mental resilience. And because of the evidence, the body of evidence that has been showing consistently the powerful effects of mindfulness, that when you Google stress management, you will find that most of the images that some of them I'm using here are actually showcasing that mindfulness practice or meditation is a form of stress management approach. And so it's not just us saying it, but the people who have experienced it and the body of evidence that is proving it. So in life, there is no such thing that we can live without stress. Stress is not necessarily a bad thing unless it gets to the point that it causes us to have discomfort in the body, as well as causing us not to be able to function optimally. Sometimes a little bit of stress actually helps us to push our performance up and even optimize our performance. I know that when I have to write a paper or prepare a presentation, I need a little bit of stress in order for my creative juice to really pump. And then suddenly I can just produce it in a very short space of time. But when I know that there's a long runway and I have plenty of time, there isn't sufficient level of stress, then I tend not to be as productive. So some of us can thrive on a bit of stress. Some of us can thrive on a little bit more stress, but there is a level of stress that becomes unhealthy. And we will talk a bit about that. So this picture here is about reducing our stress so we can actually be optimum instead of being feeling burnout. So what is your level of stress? Is your level of stress in the green zone? Which means, you're pretty chill, pretty cool, pretty relaxed. Or is it in the orange zone, which we would consider probably around the level of optimum and a little bit of, pressure, but not in such a way that it's going to cause you to feel like your life is out of control, or you're feeling like you've got effects in your body that is showing signs of fatigue, or low in energy, heaviness, and even signs of headaches or inability to sleep. So what we do not want is our stress level to go into the red zone, especially the far extreme red zone, because when that happens, then we are not going to be able to perform or live a life that we feel that it's worth living. When we are so stressed out, we actually feel like, life is too much. There's no enjoyment in it. There's no fun in it. What's the point? So when we have prolonged stress at that level, it can actually cause us to go into depression. And it may even be activating signs of anxiety before depression kicks in. So it's really important for you to have an honest evaluation of your stress level to ascertain where you're at. So you know that there needs to be some change in your life to reduce the stress, and also to bring your level of stress to a healthy level. Yeah. What are the physical signs of stress? I know that when I'm feeling an unhealthy level of stress, I do not feel hungry. I have heaviness in the chest that can actually make me feel like my breathing is not very smooth. And that could be neck and shoulder pain. And in some people, back pain, stomach upset. Now, for people who suffer from irritable bowel syndrome, that is one of the symptoms. Or you may have diarrhea, which is not due to food, the food that is unhealthy or it's gone bad, but rather the stomach is just being reactive. And then muscular pain in the muscles of your legs as well, and getting headaches, feeling lumps in the throat where you find it difficult to articulate your ideas. So these are actually some of the symptoms of stress. And if you have any of these, then you need to take note and make some changes in your life. Because if you were to continue your current habits, your current lifestyle, the stress level is not going to reduce. It's probably going to sustain at this level or just get worse. So you can't just not do anything different. There's a saying, if you want a different outcome, you have to do something different. If you want a different output, you've got to have a different input. So what are some of the corresponding emotions that could bring about stress, which could be felt in the body? So that's why sometimes we call this psychosomatic. What is psychologically affecting us has an effect on the body. Depression is one of them, but before we get there, there would be a lot of doubt, self-doubting, doubting other people all the time, not having a level of trust, feeling a sense of despair, which is a sense of hopelessness, shame, that we're afraid of people knowing what we have done or what we are. So before 377A was repealed, there were many LGBT people who may suffer a sense of shame because there is a law against their sexual activity, which basically marginalizes them. So whenever that we feel people around us can't accept something that we have done or what we are, that sense of shame can actually cause a lot of stress. And then we feel a sense of sadness, which usually comes with regret, fear, frustration, guilt. Guilt is also a form of anger because when we feel guilty, we're angry with ourselves that we hadn't done something that we should have, or wishing that we didn't do something that we had done. And then being envious of others, always thinking that somebody else has a better life, not realizing there are many other people who've got lives worse than ours. Jealousy is another form of envy. And grief, that sense of loss, not being able to accept that losing people and things along the way is part of life. No one can live forever, so whoever we have in our life is going to leave us at some point. So that grief of even losing our job, because our job is not going to be for life, can actually bring about a negative emotion. So why do we call these emotions negative? Have you ever thought about that? That's because when we experience these emotions, our body actually feels uncomfortable. There is tension in the body. That's why we call these negative emotions. When you have feelings of happiness, feelings of joy, feelings of fulfillment, these emotions bring about lightness in our body. It makes us relax. It makes us energetic. Whereas these negative emotions tend to make us feel drained, like we don't have a lot of energy, or there's just all these effects of unable to sleep, having headaches, having pain in our body, palpitations, pain in our gut. So pain is a form of alert that this body is actually telling us that something needs to be done differently. So pain is actually an alert system. So someone has posted here, for me, stress has caused me to wake up early before my alarm clock rings. Last Friday, I only slept at 12 and I woke up at 3 and then I couldn't sleep. What can I do? Even when I try to sleep earlier, it doesn't help. So this is like plugging in your mobile phone when the battery is really low or it's run out. And just as soon as there is sufficient battery charge, the phone wakes up again. So this is actually what's happening to your mind as well. As soon as it gets sufficient energy to be alert, it comes back alive. But 3 hours of sleep is not sustainable for you to last the whole day. So you're absolutely right. It's not going to help just because you sleep earlier. Yeah. So I will teach you some techniques later on and also give you some links to using some of my audio recordings that may help you to be more relaxed when you wake up in the middle of the night, and hopefully that will take you back into your sleep zone. Or you can actually use some audio recordings just for your mind to focus on the sound. So you're not really listening to the words, but just your mind focusing on one object helps your mind to be anchored and not be thinking all over the place, which is what's keeping the mind awake. So as you pointed out, your stress is causing inflammation to your body, fluid in your knees and hands and elbows. So that is the downside of excessive stress, which is the psychosomatic effects. So what can you do that could actually relieve or reduce the amount of stress that you're experiencing? When we're feeling stressed and we're feeling a bit down, we actually feel like isolating ourselves. We don't feel like going out to meet with our friends. We don't feel like really doing much. It's like as though we feel, well, you know what, I'm tired. I feel like, my energy is low, so I'm just gonna stay at home. When we do that, it perpetuates a cycle that can lead to exhaustion because we don't actually have any joy coming into our life. And that actually makes things worse. So instead of waiting for someone to call you, and if they do, please say yes and go out, even though you feel your energy is very low. Or call someone and say, hey, shall we meet up for a cup of coffee? Or shall we go take a walk? Socialize. It's really important to socialize because humans are generally social creatures. We are not cut out to live on our own, except some very special people who have been doing mindfulness for so many years that they are so comfortable being on their own and having the silence around them that doesn't become conducive for the mind to create lots of negative stories, to catastrophize. But if we're not there yet, socializing is important. Exercise helps to relax our body. So after this, in fact, I'm going to be doing yoga. And this is a form of exercise. To do walks, 15 minutes at least to walk. Stretching, it's really helpful to release a lot of tension in your body. So if you haven't taken one of the mindfulness courses that we teach at Brahm Centre, you may wish to consider because we do incorporate stretching into our mindfulness courses. Sleep is important, but I do know that many of you may have difficulty sleeping if you're highly stressed. The ideal is to sleep at least 7 hours. But if you can do with 6, great. But 5, 4, 3 are really on the border of insufficient. And you realize that, you don't actually have a lot of energy to last you the whole day. Breathe. So a lot of times when we do mindfulness practice, we use the breath because the breath is always present. Of course, unless we're dead, well, then we don't need to do mindfulness practice, right? But as long as we're alive, the breath is there and it is the object of present. Focusing on the breath, taking a few deep breaths first, helps us to oxygenate our body, and that includes the brain. So when the brain has sufficient oxygen, it also helps the brain to think better. And the breath helps to oxygenate all the other cells in our body, which is really critical for our body to be able to function. Because we can not eat for a couple of weeks and we'll still be fine. We cannot, actually more than 2 weeks, right? But if we don't drink, we can still survive a couple of weeks. But if we don't breathe, if our body stops breathing, it's only a matter of minutes. So huge importance with breath, and each in-breath nourishes the body, and each out-breath relaxes the muscles. So when we take deep breaths, and I'd like to invite you to do it now, take a deep breath. Then exhale. Take another deep breath. And then exhale. Notice how the body becomes more relaxed when we take this deep in-breaths and then a slow exhale. So if you can't sit and meditate, at least do a few deep breathing exercises at intervals. That will be able to help you release or reduce some of the stress that your body is harboring. The mental attitude to reducing stress is really important. And I'm not going to touch on the full range of mental attitudes that we teach as part of our mindfulness course, but just 2 for today, just so that you can reduce a little bit of your stress level. One of them is actually acceptance. A lot of times when we can't accept something, whether it's something that's happened, something that's said about us, or can't accept someone, the way he behaves or whatever that may be, there will be a lot of trouble in the mind. The mind will start to crank up all sorts of judgments and all the permutations on why this person is not behaving right, or why this thing shouldn't have happened, or why this person had no right to say whatever he or she has said. So when we have this lack of acceptance, this mind doesn't stop cranking. Or we can't even accept that life is so unpredictable. Because life is unpredictable. Whether we can or cannot accept it, life remains unpredictable. Our body is unreliable. This body can collapse at any time. We just don't know when and where. Look at recently, one of our business legends, Mr. Sim, collapsed. Nobody expected it. He was at work one day and the next day, he's gone. So accepting the nature of life is important for us to make peace with what life is. Not every relationship will last in the period that we want it to last. Look at when we were in primary school, we had primary school friends. Well, they're no longer around. Or, we have moved on and made new friends, especially when we went to secondary school. And each time we change class, we also have different classmates. And then when we started working, from one job to another, our friends change. And even if you marry someone, it doesn't mean that it's going to be lifelong. So accepting that relationships are also transient, just like most things in life, helps us to make peace with it. If we want life to give us what it can't, that will cause our mind to be very agitated and unsettling. So acceptance is powerful. It's not about rolling over and letting everyone walk all over us. That's not the acceptance that we're talking about here. Acceptance, the nature of life, the nature of relationship, people as they are, that it's not up to us to change others. We can encourage, we can prompt, but we can't change other people. There's only one person in this world that you can change, and that is you. And even then, you know how difficult it is for you to be able to change yourself, which is basically changing your habits. But before you can change your habit, you have to accept that you have this particular habit and that you're going to have to develop awareness in order to replace a habit that is not healthy for you with a healthier habit. But you have to first accept that this habit of yours is not healthy and that you want to change it. So this is what we talk about, making peace. Accept that your company, whatever business is in, whichever boss it has, it will always evolve because it's not going to stay the same. Because the world doesn't stay the same. What happens when we don't accept? So this is a very good illustration that I got from the internet. When it's raining and we are not happy that it's raining because we can't accept that it's raining because it's spoiling our plans. And then you put all sorts of judgment. I don't like rain. I wish it wasn't raining. My day will be better. If it wasn't raining, if only it wasn't raining, my day is ruined. Every day is like this. It's always like this. Why does it always rain when all I want is for it to be sunny? How realistic it is for every day not to have rain. And what would happen if really we don't get any rain? Is that really going to be better for us? Of course not, right? Because all the plants out there, the trees, the grass need rain. And if we don't get rain, we'll be out of water and we'll all be dying of thirst. Because this human body and all other animal bodies need water. But if we can accept, yes, it's going to rain sometimes, but not according to our schedule, and that our plants would just have to adapt if it starts to rain, accepting that it's raining without all these narratives and judgments. I don't like rain. That acceptance gives us a sense of peace to focus on how is it that we need to adapt our plans. Take our umbrellas out, call Grab instead of walking to the bus stop, whatever it is. And if we can accept that, we'll just have to spend extra $10 because now we have to go by car and it'll take us longer time to wait for a car. If we can accept all that, do you see how your level of stress reduces? And if you're a parent, to accept that, your kids, as they grow older, they're not going to listen to you. If you can accept that, you'll be more at peace with your kids and have better relationships with your kids. But when you can't accept it, then you get a whole lot more stress in life. Now, I found this and I thought it was really lovely, so I wanted to share it. To let go takes love. It does not mean that you stop caring, even when you say, okay, I'm going to let go of my children. Because to let go is not about cutting yourself off, but realizing that you can't control others. Yeah, I mean, like, who can control you? Can anyone control you? So we're no different. We don't like to be controlled. And if anyone tries to control us, we would resist. We want to run away. That's our natural reaction to anyone wanting to control us. So letting go has an element of care and trust in it. It's not about chap, like, oh, I don't care. No, it's not there. It's letting go, recognizing that we can't control. So we accept. And we focus instead our attention on what is it that we can do that is of greater value. And that other person is going to appreciate, not about what we want to do, but what the other person will see as something of value to them. So this is another very inspirational caption that I thought. Love yourself enough to let go of people, thoughts, and habits which get in the way of joy and growth. As we grow, we develop habits. There are some habits we have now that we didn't have before, and some habits we had before, we've stopped doing those things, so it's no longer a habit. Habit is something that's repetitious and is almost automatic. And some habits get in the way of our joy, like nagging. It's a terrible habit. Imagine you live with someone who nags at you all the time, wanting you to do things a certain way, and then if you don't do it, he or she keeps saying the same thing, harping at you. That is a habit that is annoying and it drives people away. So if we have that habit, we need to quit the habit in order for us to have more joy and growth. When we have more joy, we would put joy into people's life. When we have more angst, we end up adding angst to people's life. When we have a lot of anger in us or fear, we tend to then put fear and anger into other people's lives. So if we like to have more joyful relationships, we have to work on ourselves. We have to change the habits that do not bring joy. It's not about changing other people or making other people do things, thinking that's going to put joy in our life. Because when somebody does something that we feel they should do it, it doesn't stop there. It'll be on to the next thing, and then the next thing. How about we can encourage people by being complimenting, by being thoughtful, by being encouraging? So these are new habits to develop, because then we don't put stress on ourselves and we don't put stress on others. I know you might say that's easier said than done, but we have to first say it. If we don't even say it, we can't get on to doing it. So doing it requires us first for us to think about it and then to be able to articulate it and then start the journey of change. So you may now ask, well, what is mindfulness going to do with it? In mindfulness, we actually become more aware of what we're thinking when we're thinking it. When we have mindfulness embodied, we're more aware of what we're saying as we're saying it, not after the fact. And what we're doing as we're doing it. Like I'm very aware where my hands are because I'm mindful where my hands are. It is not meant to distract you, but rather to emphasize the point, to make this talk more animated and more captivating. This is what mindfulness does. We become aware when someone is stressed. Now, we know sometimes we need to apply some stress in order to make a shift. But it's also necessary for us to know how to reduce that stress when the stress level no longer becomes helpful in optimizing change that is needed. So this man here, Dr. Jon Kabat-Zinn, founded mindfulness-based stress reduction in 1979. And it's a 44-year program now. Now it's 2023. And it has a large body of evidence, the data to show its efficacy. So don't take my word for it. You can even go into the YouTube and watch the video on the effects of mindfulness, in particular mindfulness-based stress reduction. And I would encourage you to get this book called Full Catastrophe Living by Dr. Kabat-Zinn himself. And he actually curated this program all the way back in '79 at the University of Massachusetts. And now this program has been adopted by Brown University, which is one of the Ivy League schools. And the team is very active in promoting MBSR. We at Brahm Centre also teaches MBSR. In fact, I was the first MBSR certified teacher in Singapore. And we have a team of teachers at Brahm Centre. So there is a video on the research, but perhaps I'm not going to play it right now, but if you'd like to listen to it, I can play it later on, but you can actually get this on YouTube. I'd like to just take this opportunity to mention that across the Atlantic from Boston, where UMass is, University of Massachusetts, is Oxford, University of Oxford. And these three men, Dr. Mark Williams, who is a clinical psychologist, specializes in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Dr. Zindel Siegel, who is from the University of Toronto, and Dr. Teasel from University of Oxford, who's a neuroscientist. They got together to meet Dr. John Kabat-Zinn to incorporate mindfulness into CBT, which makes CBT even more powerful as an intervention tool to help people to change the way they think in order to change their behavior and therefore changing the outcome. So I would encourage everyone to do MBCT, not because you have depression or anxiety, but as even an inoculation tool against depression. Because when we are much more aware of how our mind thinks, then we're able to change the way we think in order to bring about a different emotion, feeling, and outcome. So this program has been more effective in prevention of relapse of depression than taking drugs, as the research has uncovered. So I teach this as well, as I am a qualified teacher, and I would encourage you to consider signing up. In fact, both these programs, MBSR is going to be available in February, March, and MBCT, I think it's in March, because I'm teaching one right now. And another course that we teach is Mindful Compassion course, which helps to align the heart with the mind. Sometimes our judgmental mind can be very harsh on ourselves and others. That's why sometimes we say to people, have a heart. Feel what is good for you. Instead of using the mind, which may have a very critical voice, a critical, judgmental mind, the heart is a lot kinder. And for many people, they're not aligned. That's why when the head rules the heart, we can be very harsh. But if we can align the two, we have our intelligence as well as a sense of kindness and care. Our decisions and our approach to doing things may start to shift to reduce the amount of unhappiness in ourselves and others. Now, I'm sure you agree, it's very hard to be happy when you know everybody around you is not. But when other people are happy, it's easier for us to be happy as well. Because happiness is contagious, just as unhappiness is the same. So aligning the heart and the mind helps. So we do have a schedule that's been published on our Facebook as well as a website that you can select. If you are a Singaporean or PR, you can use your Skills Future. If you are 50 and above, if you're PR, you can't use the Skills Future. You don't have any, but if you're a citizen, you do. But National Silver Academy provides subsidy to both Singaporean citizens as well as PR, an 80% subsidy to attend mindfulness courses. We do have well-being seminars coming up. Apart from this one, the next one is Common Issues Affecting Youth by Dr. Daryl Tan, who is in the Psychiatry Department of Ng Teng Fong General Hospital. on the 28th January. So I highly encourage you to attend that seminar, as many of us have young people that we either care for or live with or have an effect on. So it's good for us to understand what are now the common issues affecting our young people today. And we have a Chinese set of seminars coming up by a very renowned Li Zhongjian teacher from Taiwan. And since you're listening to my talk, I am very happy to give you a promo code that you can attend the seminar for just $10 by typing the promo code CNY 2023. If that doesn't work, try 2023 CNY. I can't remember the exact order. And to encourage you to do exercises, come and join our movement, whether it's in McPherson, Tampines, CMA, or some other social service agency that offers exercise classes near your area. And certainly art is a very therapeutic form of stress reduction, and in so much joy, in being able to develop a skill of art. And there's nobody in this world who can't do art. I thought I couldn't do art, but actually I found myself really enjoying art. So please come out and do something different if you want to reduce your level of stress and you want to be a happier person. Because continuing your current habits and your lifestyle, if you are feeling stress, it's not going to help. So I hope that my session with you today has been helpful, and I'm very now open to whatever questions that you have to answer any of your queries.